everybody, welcome to the Midweek Check-In. You guys, this week we are heading in to one of the most confusing books in the entire New Testament. Well, second to the book of Revelation, but we're not there yet. First, we have a pit stop at the book of Hebrews. Now, one of the reasons why Hebrews is confusing is, for one thing, we have no idea who the author is. So kind of like where we just came out of the epistles of Paul, those letters that Paul wrote to all the different churches and all the different pastors, we kind of got to know Paul, right? Like we got to read about his conversion story back in Acts, and we got to really know and understand how he communicates, what his heart is, what his passion is. Well, in this book, we don't have that reference at all. So we're kind of going in blind with that. We also don't have any idea who this letter or book is written to. We have no idea who the intending audience is. So I guess we can assume it's for you and for me. So that's the second reason why. The third reason why it's kind of confusing is because it actually references multiple times over and over and over the Old Testament. Now, if you're not familiar with the Old Testament, that makes it really, really confusing. I mean, we read the Old Testament all together, right? But that was months and months and months ago. So I will tell you this. Actually, the Bible Project, when you go through and you watch the video on Hebrews, they actually recommend that every single time you come to a reference from the Old Testament to stop what you're doing, to go back to the Old Testament and look up the reference in order to kind of bridge that to make sense of it. Now, I gotta be honest, I don't do that every single time I read the book of Hebrews, but it is a recommendation and I can see why it's important. But one of the reasons why Hebrews is not confusing is that the overarching theme is that Jesus is above all. He is it. And we know that as lovers of Jesus. We understand that Jesus is it, that he is above all. But it can be kind of confusing for example, the Hebrews, for example, or Jewish believers. They actually prioritized a lot things like angels. They set them really, really high. Well, the book of Hebrews talks about how angels are second for sure to Jesus, that Jesus overcomes and he is bigger and more powerful and he is above them, that he is bigger, more powerful and above priests. He is bigger and more powerful above sacrifice. Again, a lot of Old Testament references, but things that kind of make sense if you think about maybe things that we would compare Jesus to today. Jesus is it. And one of my favorite references is this reference to the fact that Jesus is above all, the highest, most amazing, over every single thing priest. All the other priests before him, Jesus is it. He covers them all. So if you remember back from the Old Testament, priests were this. Their job was to help people enter into the presence of God. So God's people back in the Old Testament didn't have access to God at all. They had to rely on priests in order to enter into the presence of God, of which they never even really got to do. Priests once a year would enter in the tabernacle or the temples, this place called the Holy of Holies. Now, this place was in the back of the tabernacle, in the back of the temples, and it was cordoned off by this big, beautiful, elaborate curtain that oftentimes we hear called curtain, or we also hear it called the veil. But it was separated from the rest of the structure, and no one, like I said, could go in there except for the priests. And the priests could only go in there after they had atoned for all the people's sins, and also for their own sin. And again, they only got to do that once a year. That was the only way that people had access to God, was through the priests, through this whole process, once a year in the Holy of Holies. Well, as Jesus is the most ultimate high priest forever, Scripture tells us, Jesus, when he came, he didn't have to make atonement for himself. He was sinless, he was spotless, he was perfect. But he was the atonement for us.